Welcome to the Do Good X podcast, a sanctuary from the entrepreneurial grind. Hosts Kimberly Danielle and Stephen Lewis, advocates for impactful entrepreneurship, guide you on the path where purpose meets business. Join us to slow down, reconnect, and explore the challenges of under-resourced entrepreneurs, uncovering the unique journey of building businesses that make a difference. Now, your hosts.
Welcome to the Do Good X podcast. My name is Stephen Lewis, and I'm a catalyst for positive change in communities and businesses. And for 2 decades, I've inspired leaders and entrepreneurs to live and work on purpose with intention, faith, and a commitment to their well-being. And I'm joined here today with my colleague, Kimberly Danielle. Hey, Kimberly, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too. It's been an interesting day so far, but I'm excited for what we have going on today in our conversation.
Indeed.
And how we will all be inspired by this conversation. I am Kimberly Danielle. I'm a community builder, a coach, and a communication strategist who comes from generations of faith-driven leaders and entrepreneurs who believe that our purpose should drive us to contribute to the common good. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in to this episode. And today we have a wonderful guest who is also here in Atlanta with us, where Do Good X is. And this is Justin McLeod. Justin is a busy, savvy creative with a passion for uplifting his community through entrepreneurship and innovation. His expertise in marketing and love for community, paired with his mantra, think big, start small, work fast, has led him to opening doors for hundreds of underrepresented entrepreneurs in tech as he strives to close the racial wealth gap by educating, training, and servicing overlooked innovators. Justin's dedication to technology-based economic development led him to pioneering Atlanta Tech Village's first pre-accelerator program, which has supported over 90 tech startups led by women and people of color. And if you don't know Atlanta Tech Village and you're an entrepreneur, especially in the tech world, you should definitely check that out. In 2017, Justin founded Surthrive, a marketing consultancy on a mission to accelerate economic development by helping small businesses build capacity to scale. Through Surthrive's consulting, entrepreneurial program, and technical assistance services, Justin has supported over 500 socially disadvantaged businesses who have combined created 800 jobs and raised over $44 million in capital. That is some impact right there. And Justin has been featured in Inc. magazine, NPR, Afrotech, TechCrunch, while also being recognized as the 2023 Startup Atlanta Community Builder, a Inc. 30 under 30 listee, 2019 Choose ATL Influencer, and Herman J. Russell Sr. Venture Award recipient. As a mission-driven visionary, Justin's journey embodies a relentless pursuit of positive change, pushing boundaries and making a lasting impact on the world. I met Justin. I've been actually following Justin's work for quite some time. It's been a few years, and I had the opportunity to chat with Justin over the summer of this year, and it was wonderful to connect with another person who is leading an accelerator program, someone who is in the marketing space, someone who is supporting underrepresented entrepreneurs in various capacities. So thank you so much for joining us, Justin. We look forward to our conversation today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to share just, my story, some tips, some resources, and happy to provide that with your community. And yeah, I'm excited to get into it.
Well, let's go ahead and get started. I just want to start off by asking you, what inspires you to start Surthrive, and how does this work complement the efforts of the pre-accelerator program, Square One Startup School?
Yeah, so they kind of Surthrive and Square One. The reason why I started Surthrive, yeah, the story behind it is basically I had my own startup back in 2014, 2013, when I was a student at Georgia State University, and basically we kind of just had an idea, and I was like, hey, I want to build a tech startup. I didn't know anything about Silicon Valley. I didn't know anything about venture capital. Definitely was not technical at all. Like I was literally in the computer information systems department when I should have been in the computer science department looking for a co-founder. So I didn't know too much about like, tech. And I was, early 20s and trying to figure out like how to get my idea off the ground. So finally, start to build up a team and, we raised some capital and we launched a startup. But like most startups, it didn't do as well as you intended it to be. So yeah, but like I said, I just didn't kind of know just like how to create that business model as far as like to generate revenue. So we were kind of just going off of the Mark Zuckerberg model of, you know, create a software that's going to, impact millions of users. And we're going to drop out of college and we're going to, just be successful and the revenue will come. Well, that model doesn't work too much nowadays, and it didn't work for us, right? So, essentially, I had to close down a startup, right? But my time when I was developing a startup, I was like actually, you mentioned Atlantic Village. We was working out of Atlantic Village, and I kind of noticed something. I noticed that like me and my co-founder, we were like some of the few Black folks in the building. At the time, Atlantic Village was kind of fairly new, and it kind of had that college prep vibe, like the typical startup bro vibe, right? I'm talking about, got the polo shirts and people rolling around on scooters. And then me and my co-founder would come in with our, hat backwards with, so, just with the culture, right? But I noticed that we were, different. And I noticed coming from just a space of my previous background is just in event planning, that this was a unique space to me, technology. And I know that as I was building my tech starter found, I was like, okay, I want to change this. I don't know how or when, but I want to like open up more doors for people that look like me in tech. This is why I was building my startup. But then, I didn't of course have the capacity to, be a community builder or anything like that because I was built heads down on a tech startup. But once we shut that startup down, I was like, okay, cool. I don't want to go into corporate where I like this technology. I see how scalable it is to like really generate wealth for, the community. So that's where I kind of started to thrive. I kind of just essentially married my expertise in marketing. So that's what I went to school for is marketing, but also for my passion for helping out my community and just opening up doors for people that look like me who just don't know about raising capital, getting customers, getting resources for their business. So I was like, okay, I want to create a platform or services that can just help these underrepresented entrepreneurs just get those resources so that they can essentially scale their business. So basically, that's kind of like the origin story of how I started to thrive. And yeah, like I said, started off as me as a failed startup, kind of going and pivoting into my my expertise in service, but pairing it with just my yeah my love for giving back to the community. So I'll stop there. I know that's a long answer.
Yeah, that's good. Accelerators are often seen as launching pad for startups, but they're also businesses themselves. Some
Hmm.
I'm interested in hearing some of the challenges and opportunities that you experience in developing and leading Square One Startup School.
Yeah, so basically, I came up with Squirrel and start this concept for it when I was at Atlantic Village. So I started working part time at Atlantic Village and doing Surthrive, simultaneously. And when I was working at Atlantic Village, I launched their pre-accelerator program, and of course, it had the brand name of Atlantic Village on it. David Cummins, is the owner of Atlantic Village, so everybody in the tech scene knew the brand. Um, but the one thing that I noticed my time of creating the program there is that we would reject people from who applied to come participate in the program. Not just because some people just weren't qualified, but sometimes we reject them because they weren't able to actually come downtown to Buckhead on a Wednesday at 10 a.m. Right. So me, I looked at that as an accessibility problem, and I said, "Hey, let's try to create this and solve this problem." So that's when I left Atlantic Village, and I created my own pre-accelerator program, which is Square One Startup School, and with the vision and the mission to create equitable uh, startup education for anybody who wants to create a startup. Right. So if anybody has an idea, they shouldn't be limited just because they're not able to actually go to Silicon Valley or Atlanta or these big major tech hubs. They can be in, I don't know, Idaho, and still want to build a startup. And that's where the concept essentially came from with Square One Startup School. And I guess to answer your question, the biggest challenge with, kind of having a standalone a program without like the big backing initially is that itself. It's like, anything, it's a business. You know what I'm saying? You need capital to run it. So our model is essentially to create a program tuition fee for founders to participate. So basically they have to pay to play, so pay to participate in our programming. But I think that had been the most challenging aspect, is finding a unique business model that supports community builders. Because I think that's something that's not really talked about. It's like, hey, everybody wants the ecosystem builders and community and the dot connectors, but um, funding those type of programs and individuals who are doing the work is tough, right? But you have to be very creative. And one creative thing that I started to do was like kind of pair my service-based business, which was Surthrive, with the program. So we started getting contracts underneath Surthrive's name, and then we will kind of like funnel some money that we're getting from Surthrive into the program. So that's helping us fund the program. So I get more into that, but that's been the most challenging thing to kind of run a pre-accelerator. It's like you love it, you want to do it, you want it to grow and expand, but you have to create an actual viable business model that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? That is actually sustainable over time.
Yeah, and you're definitely not the only one
That's
who
right.
has experienced that challenge. And I mean, we've had that conversation, me and Steven. We've talked to other folks, other community builders, and people who've run accelerator programs, especially accelerator programs who choose to not take equity from the businesses that go through the programs. And yeah, it is definitely a challenge. I want to hear about some of the common mistakes that first time founders make that you've seen coming, with the founders have come through Square One Startup School. And how does the pre-accelerator you lead help them to avoid those pitfalls? So maybe one or two of the most common mistakes that you've seen made.
I think that the most common mistakes is the mistake I had made when I was a founder was number one is essentially going from idea straight to product, right?
Hmm.
Like so literally like you have a concept and you go straight to like I want to build this out. I want to build exactly what my idea is. And I guess the number two thing is that that I've seen is founders who aren't coachable. I don't say coachable, who aren't receptive to being flexible with their initial idea, right? So I think that that's extremely important when you're kind of starting off, is that um, to be flexible, right? So to be open to pivoting, shifting things that probably aren't initially how you want envision them to work out. Um, you know, that it could, work out for your benefit if you, kind of are open to that flexibility. But the reason I say number one is that, idea of the product is because I've seen a lot of founders spend a lot of money, right? So we think that like startup founders don't have money, or they can't pay for this program, or they can't pay for that. But I've seen, when it comes to technology companies, that we work with a lot of software companies or startup founders who are building software. Um, the highest I've seen to date is they spent $200,000 on a clickable prototype that doesn't work. So I was like, okay, 200,000. The last one I seen was 90,000. I seen 50,000 to all the way up to like $200,000 on building, from going from idea, like, hey, I have this idea, hiring a software development company or outsourcing it, and they're spending all this capital, and then they get back in return something that is not even functional or working, right? So with Square One, we want to get to people before they actually start spending money. Like that was one of the biggest foundations why we built Square One as well, is to help avoid those common mistakes and those pitfalls, especially as it relates to non-technical founders who, because I was a non-technical founder. I looked up meeting my co-founder because we played football at Georgia State together. And he was just happened to be in computer science, right? I haven't met too many football players in computer science, but either way, that's how I found my co-founder, right? But nowadays, it's kind of tough to find like a co-founder that's cool that just wants to join, and you have to pay them a lot of money. So a lot of people say, okay, well, can't find it, and I'll liquidate my 401k and jump into it, right? So the thing is, what we do is we don't want that to happen. We want to basically help them validate their concept, essentially figure out their value proposition. Do customers really want it? Does the market really want it? Test it out in a minimal viable way as possible, um, in the most cost efficient way possible. We really preach the fact that we need to start to leverage getting customers, even if that's not necessarily building a technology product. Create a service based product, generate some sales, and then use those sales to reinvest it back into the product version of it. So that's kind of what we really teach. We're not biased on one route when it comes to startups. We don't say, hey, you need to raise venture capital, or hey, you need to build this big technology thing, right? Our thing is just about providing those options, providing those pathways, but really just educating them so that they know how to make the most data driven and accurate decisions for them that makes sense, and they're confident in that. Because I didn't have that when I was building my startup. I didn't know all the different pathways, right? So I just kind of just was going off a straight hustle and just, I'm gonna make this happen, right? But it didn't happen because the lack of knowledge is really the probably one of the worst things for anybody to have, right? So that's kind of where the whole concept of even it being a school, right, is just education and just showing those different pathways and options so that they can choose with confidence and take those risks, but do them calculated.
Well, with the rise of incubators and accelerators in Atlanta, what are the most exciting possibilities and potential drawback for startups and local ecosystems, or even for the startup school that you've been working in?
Oh yeah, so she said the what was that? She said what are the
Yeah,
opportunities?
like what do you
Okay.
think? I mean, it's such a saturated market in terms of incubators and accelerators, particularly here in Atlanta now. And so I'm curious about from where you sit, where do you think the opportunities or drawbacks for startups in the local ecosystem here in Atlanta?
Yeah, I think that it's just a matter of how you position yourself in the market. Just like with any an incubator, is just like a business, right? How are you positioning yourself in the market? And the biggest thing, opportunity is the good thing is that there is these resources. Because when I was building my startup, we didn't have no accelerators in Atlanta or no incubator. I had to work out of a library. Literally working out of a dang library, and I was like kind of mad about that. But anyway, now there's co-working spaces and accelerators, and what I'm saying. So, like to your point, it's just more accessible aspects. But I guess if you are an ecosystem builder, it's really just going back to figuring out what makes you unique, what makes you fit in the market, and also what are you double down on, right? So for instance, of course, with technology, the big trendy things now is AI. So if you have anything with AI or climate change, then there's government funding for those aspects that you can essentially submit grants and proposals for, and then get some federal capital. Or if, like I said, if you want to evolve your incubator into an accelerator, right? So getting some equity, turning into like a mini fund or micro fund on the back of it, end of it. Maybe you have philanthropist friends or just like a crowdfunding aspect of thing. I don't know, but essentially where you investing and getting equity into some founders, or if it's a service-based model, right? So if you essentially say, hey, we're going to practice training, but also here's how we can help your entire business, not just with the product, but we can help with your marketing. We can help you build this thing. So for example, like I said, if I saw that a founder is spending $200,000 on a clickable prototype, it's like, okay, how can we figure out a business model where they can spend $25,000 with us, right? So it's about really being creative. So it can't just hone in on just education, because you can get education from anywhere nowadays. So it's really about the type of people. Like for me with Square One, we're bringing in some pretty heavy hitters in the startup space. We talked to Ben Chestnut, co-founder of MailChimp, who sold his business for $12 billion. We talked to Beatrice Dixon, who sold her company, the Honeypot Co., for $380 million. So we're bringing in all these different people from my personal network and bringing them in, so then people are like excited about those founders and want to hear their story. But also, like I said, it has to be something more valuable than just the uh, education piece.
Yeah, that one of the things I was thinking about as you was talking, particularly what's most recent in the ecosystem, is all that has been transpired with the Fearless Fund and this whole kind of litigation. And I wonder, as from one founder to another founder in terms of creating an accelerator, how are you thinking about Square One Startup School in light of you know these types of pending litigations and more to come with affirmative action, and really trying to think about like how do you actually tend to underrepresented entrepreneurs to really create the kind of robust ecosystem where everybody wins.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, for me, my personal perspective on it is like my personal mission is to help specifically Black entrepreneurs. Like, straight up, I want to help Black people. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's my biggest thing. I see, it's maybe because I am Black, what I'm saying? I've seen just experienced, just the racial wealth gap, what I'm saying, within not just in Atlanta, with Atlanta being one of the top cities in income inequality, but around the country, around the world, right? So that's my biggest thing. However, as a business person, I understand the language of business. Everything is a game, right? So for me, it's like, okay, if I know my personal mission, I can't let my personal mission kind of overweigh just my business objectives, right? So I know that what helps my business be more competitive is to not to know the game. So if the game is right now is, hey, you can't say you're going strictly for Black entrepreneurs or Black founders, I'm like, okay, that's fine. You know what I'm saying? Well, we're going to go and look at the data and the metrics and look at other areas that where there are larger groups of Black individuals, right? But we're probably not going to say, hey, this is a program for Black founders, right? We'll say, hey, like this is a program for non-traditional. So if you're looking at our website and our marketing material, it's for non-traditional, and technically it is, for non-traditional founders. So non-traditional can mean an array of different things, right? So if you're not traditionally funded, if you're not traditionally in the right tech hub or ecosystem to receive the resources and capital, those are the type of people that that I can essentially really connect with, right? Because whether that is if your race is different or whatever, it's like for me, it's around like, okay, how can we're sharing these common struggles, right? So how can we create that a narrative that is uh effective for and productive for everybody involved, right? So that includes people, legislation or federal grants and all these different programs saying, hey, you can't do this with this particular race or ethnicity. Like, cool, we don't have to do that. But hey, what we're gonna do is there's still some maybe lower income individuals or some individuals that are located in this area. So finding kind of like a workaround to figure out a still way to kind of fulfill your personal mission. That's what I tell entrepreneurs all the time. It's like you can have a personal mission, but also you got to know how to sometimes separate your personal from your business and still kind of figure out a middle ground, and also still fulfills that mission. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I don't know if that makes any sense,
No,
but
it
it's
does.
like,
It does. It's good.
yeah, so you can still do it, but if you don't want to overcompensate your personal stuff onto your business so much so that it negatively affects your bottom line, you know what I'm saying? And then you out of business, and then it really becomes a hobby and not a business.
That's good. Well, we're going to move to our resource roundup, and here we typically share various resources and practical tools and tips that will equip and support underrepresented entrepreneurs as you build your business. So, Justin, one of our first questions for you around resources is, given your experience in Atlanta's business community, where should underrepresented early stage entrepreneurs go to meet key players and find valuable resources to support the development of their particular businesses?
Yeah, so I think well first I'm always gonna drop my stuff. So Square One Startup School, whoever's listening, Square One Startup School, if you're building at early stage tech, we opened up our online community. So anybody with an idea, go ahead and come to Square One Startup School and you'll have access to courses, content, community. But definitely Square One Startup School. But also I guess if you're thinking about place based, so specifically Atlanta, the biggest thing when I was building my startup, um, we had this acronym. It was called BOTS, BOTS. Me and my co-founder, my team, and that stood for be on the scene. All right, be on the scene. That means that our strategy with that was like to be literally at every little event that we could go, networking event stuff. So much so that people have to ask, "Who the heck are you guys? What do you do? Like, how can I?" So I've we made that, and now that has like literally become like second nature to me now. It's like, and I always tell that to early stage founders, especially founders. Of course, if this is your first time, going out there, is to get into as many, events, workshops, programming that you can. So whether that's going to Atlantic Village and just going there, you don't have to necessarily be a member, but just going there and seeing what events their free event schedule is. Going to ATDC on Tech Square, right? Going, I went to Tech Square. What else do you have? You have Tech Stars Demo Day, right? You have Innovate TLs coming up this fall. Going to everything, right? Because you can meet so many people with just networking that'll help you get to the next level. And then also the thing is with these relationships, they're relationships, right? That's how I always treat relationships with people. Like, even with Kimberly, like you helped me out with get a couple of people that are actually instructing a instructor for our Scrum Starter School, and is actually a business consultant for my services side. So my thing is like when I meet somebody, we locked in forever, right? So this means that I could meet you at a event, and then 3 years later, I could go back and reference that event and say like, hey, remember me from here? And then saying we keep it moving. So that's my advice, as far as like for somebody that's kind of starting off, like to answer your question specifically in Atlanta. Atlanta is a growing hotbed of just startup activity where corporations are starting to get more involved with Cox Enterprises and Google for Startups. Microsoft is here. Everybody's coming to Atlanta. So there's never not events and things going on in the startup ecosystem. And the best way to do that is just kind of starting from an anchor point, going to a tech hub like Atlantic Village, going to ATDC, going there in person, and then meeting people, and then they'll start to then introduce you to other people, and then next you know, you're in the whole ecosystem, and then you know everybody, and that's how you start to leverage resources, whatever you're trying to do, whether that's be a VC, be a founder, or be the next ecosystem builder trying to bring resources together to support the community.
As a founder, as well as someone who runs an accelerator, you've seen businesses succeed as well as fail. And so I'm curious about what are 1 to 3 things that entrepreneurs need to keep in mind to contribute to the long term viability of their own businesses.
Hmm, that's good. Well, I answered it like 2 times in my head, so I'll answer it. I guess the first thing that popped in my head is just the mentality, right? Like you got to be in this thing. Like I'm in this forever. Like my strategy for my business is I'm in this forever. I don't care if I need to pause for 2 3 years. I'm not gonna saying close the business down or nothing, right? I'm gonna pause it. I don't care if I got to pause to go get a job or something like that, but it's still gonna be going. So my advice to founders is really the mentality. Do you really want to do this, right? Do you really want to do this forever, right? Or do you want to, what's your end goal, right? So are you looking to get acquired? Are you looking to go IPO? Are you looking to make a lifestyle business? But my driving force and what I tell folks is that you got to be in this. It's got to be a deeper mission than just a product. It can't just be like, hey, I'm just going to build this product up and sell millions. The majority of people that try to do that don't don't make millions, right? They're on to the next idea, right? You probably met a lot of people like that who are just kind of idea hoppers, right? But then the people that I've seen that are successful are mission driven, right? So they have a personal mission that they're trying to solve, and the medium in which it's delivered can change. So it can be a product. They can be building a product around that mission. They could be creating a service-based business around that mission. They could be working at a company around that mission. But um, basically, saying the game is forever, right? So play the forever game, and you can't lose, right? You don't lose if you don't quit. You know what I'm saying? Like that's it. Um, but that's one. And can you answer the question again? Because I had a second response. What was it? Can you answer the question again?
Yeah, I was just saying, what are one or three things that entrepreneurs need to keep in mind so that their businesses are successful and continue to be viable?
Yes. So number one is mentality. Number two is business model, and be thinking like 2 years in advance, at minimum, 2 years in advance. Like right now, like I said, I was a little late on this call. Sorry, y'all. But I was working on a contract that will at least get my company a 3 year run rate, right? So when you're growing a business, you have to be thinking not just of today, like, hey, I got a customer. Oh, yeah, we doing great this year. eh, you have to be thinking like 2 years minimum in advance. Whether that's you need to raise capital, get new customers, new contracts, new partnerships. You need to be constantly be doing that so that the cash flow and the revenue is going to be there 12 months, 18 months, 24 months down the road, right? So much so to then your business is kind of like, it's almost like automated, and you got a big business and you can just kind of relax a little bit. But if you not at that point yet, like I said, number one is mentality, but number two is figuring out a business model that can generate either revenue, cash flow, or some form of capital that where you can be ahead of the game, at least 2 years ahead of the game. So that means that's buying you time to survive, so that you don't run out of cash, because that's what a lot of businesses, including startups, whatever business, they run out of cash. And I mean, it's tough to run a business and you don't got no capital.
Thank you so much, Justin. There have been so many nuggets that have been shared so far through Justin's story and his insights, and we hope that it is inspiring you so far. And if you're looking for more resources, of course, you have the resources that Justin shared, and Do Get X is also a resource that you can explore too for your journey. So you can head to dogetx.org, and there you'll find several things that you may need to support you: resources, tools, tips, to make sure that you start off on the right foot in your entrepreneurial journey. And now we're going to shift to our next segment.
Which is off the cuff. So we have a series of questions that have not been shared with Justin, and we're going to do this at fast pace. So we just want to hear kind of quickly, Justin, off the cuff of your, as we ask you these questions, what comes to mind. So it's uncensored, but kind of a thoughtful response. So you ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So what is the best advice that you have received on your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah. So the best advice I've got, I won't say the best, but it's the one that comes top of mind, is that every product has a shelf life. Uh, and basically what that had meant to me, it kind of opened up my mind to say like, okay, like the difference between a business and a product. A lot of times like founders build products and they expect for their product to just, grow and be successful, but they don't think about the business aspect around it. So all the different revenue streams, partnerships that can, generate by running a business, rather than trying to just focus on like, hey, I'm gonna heads down on building this product. So yeah, so he basically said every product has a life shelf, so it's going to expire essentially. But your business can create multiple products essentially.
What is one of your go to practices or rituals to slow down, center, and reconnect with yourself?
Oh yeah, that's a great one. I would say number one is just, I'm a big sports fan. So number one, my week is like, I don't work a 9 to 5, as a business owner, but I try to stop my days at like 3:30. So like when I stop my day, I try to stop my days and just hang out with my kids. So I have a 2 year old and I have about to be a 2 month old. So hanging out with the family, is probably, number one, because they just my son don't know nothing about like business and economic development or nothing like that. But it's just cool hanging out with him. And yeah, I would just say just spending time with the family and watching sports because it's football season now, and yeah, that gets my mind away from it, or just taking a walk. So I live not too far from a trail, and me and my son we just go for a walk, go for a little run, and just going outside and getting outside of the office that helps me just to like get level and then really just come up with new ideas as well. So yeah,
What is the greatest lesson on your entrepreneurial journey?
the greatest lesson is that you can have the same service but different customers, right? So you can have the same service that one customer looks at and they'll pay over six figures for it, but then another customer, you will like fight tooth and nail with them to get like $100. So my biggest lesson is that uh go for customers that that know your value. Go for customers that know your value, and also go with customers that you can have a peace of mind with. Because I noticed that going with the smaller folks is bigger headache. Smaller folks, less money, bigger headache. Vice versa, go bigger clients is more money, more peaceful.
How much of your success do you attribute to your own grit, will, and hustle versus your faith?
Faith is number one. Faith is number one. I think that that's number one because, like I said, I think as an entrepreneur, you really don't know like your next thing all the time, right? Especially being a full-time entrepreneur. Like if you and being a full-time entrepreneur, a husband, a father, home, all that stuff, it's a lot of different responsibilities. So I think that you really kind of, have to lean on something other than yourself, right? So I think having a wife that is faith-based, she has a faith-based clothing brand and she's rooted in her word. And likewise, it's just that foundation is number one. I think as far as like the grit and hustle, eh, I learned that that grit and hustle is cool, but it's not about grit and hustle. It's about working smarter. And working smarter sometimes can go back to that last question of going outside and just walking and playing with your kids. Like that could be a smart thing that kind of unlocks a whole nother thing. So I would say faith is number one. And I would say, I don't know if that was part of the question, but DNA too. Like my dad is a entrepreneur at the core. He kind of do similar what I do, but he does it in Los Angeles. So I just kind of grew up um seeing entrepreneurs, being around that, have my first business when I was 6. So a combination of faith and just DNA.
So, Justin, complete this sentence. Because of my entrepreneurial endeavors, communities will be or are more able to do what?
More able to access complementary resources that they're not able to afford. Because the way that our business model works is our services for small businesses are free. So usually small businesses have to pay a lot for a professional consultancy, but working with us, you don't have to pay for free. You don't have to pay anything. So we'll give you the resources that you need to succeed.
Well, thank you so much, Justin, for joining us, providing like truly transparent insights and, just your own experience of what you might say is failures, but you learned from it and you grew from it. And now you have your businesses today, nuggets for how people can move forward or what they should be mindful of in their business. And thank you just for your work and being a part of the leaders in the Atlanta ecosystem who are truly supporting underrepresented entrepreneurs.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, Justin, I just want to say thank you for what you do in this ecosystem and the ways in which you are supporting under-resourced entrepreneurs to help make this a more robust and equitable community of leaders who are working on a variety of different problems and coming up to solutions that hopefully makes our community, our city, and our society a better place. So thank you for who you are and what you do through your work.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for hosting me. I say a lot of, this work, definitely is tough work, as you all both know. But yeah, just highlighting just awesome people like yourself, and I know other people that come onto this podcast. I know that you all are doing great work as well. So I appreciate the platform, and looking forward to staying connected.
All right. So today we are just going to have a brief chat about how does our personal well-being impact the success and sustainability of a business. Stephen, what are your thoughts on that? Because I would go in and say it can completely impact the success and sustainability of a business, particularly if you're the one that is primarily or solely leading the business.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I would say is that you are your greatest asset. And therefore, you need to take all precautions to take care of yourself. And, there are people who have written about, I think it was John Maxwell, who's like a big author in leadership, particularly, from a faith-based point of view, talk about the law of the lid. And he was basically says that, your business will only grow to the extent that the leader or that leadership team doesn't have a ceiling in terms of their ability to think, to imagine, and even I would put, take care of themselves. And so I think in many ways, as an entrepreneur, your business is an outward reflection of maybe of your kind of personal and interior life. And so I think to the extent that if you can show up tired and ran down, then your business sometimes will reflect that. If you're well rested, energized, have opportunity to kind of get away from the business and come back to it, to think about your mental health and your physical health, I think you'll see the kind of positive gains within your business as a whole. What do you say, Kimberly?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, I think I've heard a lot of people say, oh, I can sleep another time, or, people say, quote unquote, I can sleep when I'm dead.
Right.
And they're really working themselves so hard to get their business to where they desire it to be. But the question is that a sustainable model? Yes, you can put in all this time each day to get this business to where you desire it to be, but how long are you able to do that? And so you should shift that model and attend to what you just named, Stephen, where you're attending to your mental well-being, your physical well-being, all of that, so that you can give that consistent time into building your business long term versus going hard short term, and potentially that not being sustainable for you burning out, and experiencing health issues potentially, and all kinds of things can happen. And I completely agree with you that your inner well-being can be reflected in your business. Just, I think there's some quote, I forget who says it, but like your physical space is typically a reflection of your inner life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in this same vein, your business and other things that you are working on can be a reflection of your inner well-being. I've been in conversation with some entrepreneurs and founders who, just, I tell them what my practices are. They look at other people's practices of taking care of themselves, and they're like, "Oh, I wish I can do that." But you can. So if you're one of those people that question that, and I've experienced this firsthand, you're sending people emails or text messages at 2 a.m. about work, or you are doing that at, 8 p.m., 9 p.m. at night, get some dinner, spend time with your family, go to sleep.
Right.
You can make those changes. It really, I mean, you're an entrepreneur, so that should be more simple than building a business.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is that you have to train people how you want them to interact with you. And so if you're available at all times, then they believe they can contact you all the times. And I think we have to push back, and we have to interrogate what I would consider these kind of faulty or bad sayings, or, I can sleep when I die. Like, why would you want to work in such a way where you're constantly being kept from going to sleep? Well, sometimes the business requires that. Yeah, but not all the time. So, I mean, I think, again, it's about finding harmony. It's about finding harmony within the cadence within your life to be able to tend to yourself so you have something that you can actually give back to others. It's hard to give when your well is dry, or you have an empty cup, or you're working on fumes. So figure out ways in which you can attend to your own well-being and your own inner wells and reservoirs, so you can then pour with the overflow which you have that can be beneficial to others, your team, your business, and those who would enjoy for you to pay it forward to the next generation, so they don't have to make the same sacrifices or mistakes that you have made. Not saying that we don't make any sacrifice, but hopefully that, we can improve our lot in such a way that future generations don't have to make the same sacrifices that we've had to make, and hopefully find more of a cadence of well-being to be able to do the type of good work that they want to do in the world.
Right. And I'll end with a cliche here. Well, it's not a cliche, but it's something that, we've heard often. It is a marathon. It's
right.
not a sprint. So don't try to go in at full force for a short period of time. Figure out how you can pace yourself so that you are able to model and be in a more healthy space, and so that you have a sustainable business. So, hope you have enjoyed this conversation today, and we hope you continue to join us. If you like what you've heard, be sure to rate our podcast and come back and see us again, or hear us again. Until then, be well and do good.
Thank you for listening to the Do Good X podcast. To continue the conversation or access our resources, visit www.dogoodx.org. Join us again for conversations that will nourish your soul, ignite your dreams, and empower you to build an impactful business, one intentional step at a time. Until then, keep striving, thriving, and doing good.